Lighting is super, 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 super important as well. Now, there are entire courses in film school taught on lighting, and I'm just going to go over it for about 5 minutes to save you film school. But basically, nowadays equipment is becoming much more forgiving. When digital video first started at the dawn of the millennium, the digital video, the highlights, it didn't have much latitude, meaning that the blacks would get crushed, so everything in the shadows would not be discernible from each other, and the brights would all get blown out, and you could watch an early thing made on digital video, the Dogma 95 films and the like, and or the early David Lynch shorts, and you could it screamed like digital video. Now, digital video doesn't look like film. It probably shouldn't look like film. You can put in artificial filters to make it look like film, but it's its own thing. But luckily, it's its own thing, which is becoming better and better with each passing year, each passing day, in fact. And it's becoming much more forgiving. That said, it's still not as good as some of the best film stocks with lighting in terms of latitude. So use as much lighting as possible. But more lighting isn't always better. Now, your available lighting may or may not be helpful to you. So sometimes you might want to go with less lighting if your available lighting is going to become a hindrance. So here's some examples. Firstly, here's a shot where if you look in the background, there's a lot of lighting. They opened up all the windows, but the subjects are totally backlit. So they would have been better off having the gain turned up, or ideally having inside lights and just shutting the windows, or just lighting the inside so much that the backlighting wouldn't have become an issue. Now, here's a shot from a sunny day, a shot that I did for Book Baby, a sunny day outside. I was filming at the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books, and I was at the in April, which is a delightful event. And I was at the Book Baby booth, and this guy came up, and he was extremely enthusiastic about what we were selling. And he said, "I want to do a commercial for you right now." And I said, "Okay." And I unpacked and whipped out my tripod, and 3 minutes later I started filming him, and he went off. And this is what it looks like.
We're at the Los Angeles Times Book Festival, and we're with BookBaby.com. Gotta love it. Oh, man. Hey, you could just come out here, publish your ebook for just $99. Man, the gas is higher than that. I just put $99 in my minivan, and I could have published a book and made the money instead of putting it all in my gas tank. So next time you're online, don't forget, go to BookBaby.com, especially if you have kids. Book Baby.
That's awesome. So that guy is Keno Deary. Now, it turns out that he was an actor because this is L.A. and nobody's not. But I found him incredibly endearing. I filmed him, and as much as I loved it, the sun was a hassle. If you look at his cap, his face was totally in shadows. And he had to kind of look into the light in order to be seen at all. So often, a lousy day outside is a great time to shoot. If you shoot in a sunny day, you're going to have to position yourself so it's not blown out, or you use reflectors, some sort of either aluminum or whiteboard or something to fill in the shadows. Other lighting problems, harsh lighting. Harsh lighting can add years to your age, which I have a 7-year-old kid, and he would love to add years to his age. But there's going to come a time, a couple decades hence, where he's not going to want to anymore, and it can really bring out wrinkles and just not look good. And there's ways around it. You can diffuse the light by putting something in front of it, like a shade. You can add a fill light on the side, or you can bounce the light against a neutral color, meaning that often a ceiling, if the ceiling is not painted a weird color, if you bounce light off of it, it will fill in the shadows, and it will become a fill light, and it can act as a fountain of youth even for this person. So 3-point lighting is what's standard. That's what people use when filming. And usually there's a key light, a fill light, and a backlight. And I'll explain what all of them are. There's the camera. There's the subject is looking at the camera. You're looking at the subject from overhead. The camera is in front of the subject, shooting the person head on. And on the subject's right is the key light, and on his left is the fill light, and behind him is the backlight. Now the key and fill can be reversed, and Again, if you are bouncing the key off of the ceiling, you might not even need a fill light. But if you've got a key, you should pointing at the subject. In all likelihood, you're going to need a fill unless the fill is coming from ambient light or the ceiling or outside. So what the key light does is it shines directly upon the subject. That's the subject's principal illuminator. That's what lightens the subject. In outdoor shots, the key light is the sun. That's the brightest thing on you. And it's often 15 degrees to the side and higher than the subject. So you don't have to, like all of this, you don't have to and you shouldn't spend much money or time on it. So a cheap key light you could get at a Home Depot or any hardware store. It could be a $10 light with a clamp, a work light, or it could be a $10 desk lamp with a 40-watt bulb. And if you have got a gooseneck, that could allow for good positioning. Now, the fill light balances it. It illuminates the shadows made by the key light or shadows made by the angularity of the bones on the face or the nose. Usually it's softer and dimmer than the key light. And again, you can use a reflector and then you don't need a fill light at all, or you can just use a wall or bounce it off the ceiling. But generally it's on the opposite side of the key. And again, it can be higher than the subject, but usually it's lower than the key light, and it's on the opposite side. Now, without a fill light, there's Blair Witch Project again. Again, you can see one part is there's a key on the right, it's a spotlight, small little flashlight type thing, and the other is in shadow. Now, this is what the backlight does. What the backlight does is it separates the subject from the background and makes a little rim. It's also called a rim light or a halo around the object. So it can highlight the contours of the object. And it really, it's a small thing, but if you have one, and again, it can be done for less than $10, it can really subtly increase the dimensionality of what you're shooting. All right, so let's talk a little bit about editing. You can edit in anything. You can edit in Final Cut Pro if you're, if you really want to get detailed with it. You can edit in Windows Movie Maker. There are apps on the iPad to edit in. There are apps for the iPhone to edit on. Sort of the standard for people who don't do this for a living. People just want to take advantage of most of the basic features of nonlinear editing and do it easily and quickly. They do it in iMovie. So iMovie, the first thing you got to do is get your footage into iMovie. So if you're doing webcam, you just choose on the bottom left there, built-in iSight, and then you just import it that way. That's your first option. If you've got a camera, iMovie's got a bug so that if you've got to turn the internet off. If you don't, in many cases, the camera won't be recognized. As soon as you turn it off, then it's going to discover your camera. Another thing that's important is if you shoot movies on your camera, they will be left on an SD card inside and nested in a lot of file structure. And you have the ability on any computer, on a Windows computer or a Mac computer, to just view those files, stick in the SD card and view them directly. And if you don't like them, any of them, you have the ability to hit the delete button. And if you do, you will no longer be able to import your movies in iMovie. iMovie does not want you to touch the file structure. You have to start with the SD card, back up the whole SD card, and then import selected clips from there. If you delete a movie or mess with that SD card in any way, shape, or form, it will not import into iMovie, and your life will become very sad for a few hours. It's just a fact. So how to import into iMovie? You go File, Import from Camera. You select the footage, and on the bottom, I've just selected the one clip, but you could select them all. And then import it as large. There's no reason to import it as 1080 for YouTube or for the iPad at this time. It's going to make the file size massive, and there's a 2 gigabyte file size limit on a lot of the retail stores. So if you do it as large, 965/40, it's going to be beautiful. And then you just create a new project. Just file New Project. And I'm just going to walk you in 5 minutes just through the very highlights of iMovie, because I can't possibly teach iMovie in this session, but I just want to just show basic things that you can do, basic things you should do, and kind of just give a 30,000-foot overview as to how it looks. The first thing is to give the thing a title. So you're going to call your footage something, and then you drag the footage from the event library where it's been captured. The event library is in the bottom right. You just drag it up there into the project library. And the upper left is where you're going to be working. That's where your editing is going to be taking place. That's your timeline. So on the lower left are the files on your hard drives. The lower right is the footage that you've captured. And the upper left is the timeline. Those are the pieces that you're going to be cutting and pasting and editing and saving. That's where your editing is taking place. So then how do you trim it? Let's say you film for a while and you say, I don't know. And then in the midst of this, there's 2 minutes of gold that you're going to make for your video. So you just click on you open the clip trimmer, and it's right there in the project thing. On the lower left of the clip, if you look at the yellow thing, on the lower left, there's a little star. You click on clip trimmer, and then the clip trimmer opens up on the bottom lower left-hand corner of the screen. So to trim a clip, you just drag it. You just drag the front, which is the head of the clip, so you can drag it right to make it shorter, and then you can drag the tail of the clip left to make it shorter, and that's it. You've now got your selected clip of what you're going to be using for your ebook and uploading onto your website. Then you want to open up your transitions. And on the right, there's the little thing. If you look below Kino Deary to the right, that second button is the transition button, and there are many kinds of transitions. You could do like George Lucas did, like wipes or fade-ins or spin-outs, comic booky type things. But the most simple transition to use is the cross dissolve. That's basically you fade from one clip to another clip. You can just drag in a cross dissolve right there from the transitions window in the lower right up onto your project in the upper left. And then I dragged it to the front, and then now that will cross-dissolve from nothing to the clip itself. So you're going to be fading in. And then if you drag another cross-dissolve onto the tail, it will cross-dissolve from the clip itself to nothing to fade out. So now what you could do is you could open the title menu in order to put a title on the clip. So that's the T underneath Kino Deary to the right. You click on the T, you've got a title menu, and you can choose some sort of title. Now, if you look on the third row of the title menu, there's gradient white. That's what I used, but you could use anything. And drag in a template. So I just used black, and I dragged it onto the screen. And if you look, simply by dragging from there onto the clip itself, I've got a title under Kino. And you can just start typing. What's his name? Or if you're filming yourself for your ebook or for your website, you type in your name or what it is, or your book or your trailer or whatever it is you're showing, you just type there. And then as soon as you're done typing, you click on it and you can choose the duration of the title. I find 5 seconds to be good enough for people to look at it, read it, understand it, and then the title fades away. At the end of each clip, I think it's important to put in a call to action. I think it's always important to put in a call to action. Somebody sees your multimedia clip, they see your audio here, they hear your audio, they see your video. What do you want them to do? Do you want them to subscribe? Do you want them to? Are you giving them a chapter and you want to put in a link to the iBook store, to Amazon for them to buy your book? Do you want them to love you, like you, fan you, friend you, follow you, send you Valentine's Day love notes? What do you want? So it's important, a good call to action at the end tells them what you want them to do. So just dragged in another title. This time I used the centered title. And then if you look, it just put a centered title at the end of the clip. And I just put visit our YouTube page for discounts, advice, and opportunities, and then our Twitter. And I just dragged that onto black, typed it in, and now I've got my call to action, and it's a 5 or 10 second title at the end. And then at the very end, I put in another cross dissolve to fade out. So it doesn't just stop, but it actually fades out, and it looks nice on YouTube. And then the very last thing I did is if you've got a logo or if your book has a cover, you can throw that at the beginning as well. My friend Stefan, who I mentioned, who filmed the last broadcast, made Book Baby, did a 3D animation for Book Baby for a few $100s. And there are plenty of people on Craigslist and the like who can do that for you. But if you have a book trailer or if you have a logo or a picture of yourself or a picture of the book's cover, you can just put it at the beginning of your clip for 5 seconds as well. So you would just drag that to the beginning of your clip, and you can right-click on the title, and you can add a Ken Burns effect. So if you don't have a good Hollywood friend making you cool 3D effects for your book, you could still take any picture or cover, right-click, and for this $39 piece of software, iMovie, which comes with bundled with many Macs, you can add a Ken Burns effect. Ken Burns was a documentary filmmaker who would take photos of, say, the Civil War and then zoom and pan on them. And what it would be is, so it takes it at the beginning of the clip and then it makes it look small. And if you look at the Book Baby thing there, after a few seconds it starts to grow. So it pans in on it. And then right after it, you can see, so there's the cross dissolve at the beginning, fades into that last 5 seconds. Then it fades into, with the cross dissolve, into Kino Dearie, fading with the cross dissolve into the call to action at the end, and then that's the end of the clip. Now you got to export the movie so that it can go onto your website, onto YouTube, and into your book. So way to export the movie, you click on Share, Export Movie, export it again with the large setting. Again, I don't think you have to go bigger than that. And then you've got your file. Now you should upload it to YouTube. I really think that because, again, it's important to be everywhere with the decline of brick-and-mortar stores, YouTube is a great place to be. So to upload it to YouTube, you select your file from the computer, you give it a title, and that's the first thing they ask you. And you describe it in the description thing, and then you give it tags. Now, tags are super, super, super important. A lot of people just upload clips to YouTube and don't put in tags. But tags are what help people find your work. Google will suggest some tags for you, but you can do market research. You can use Google's tools to see what people are searching for. You can search for similar stuff to yours and say, what are people looking for? So in this case, I filmed Michael Larson, who's the founder of the San Francisco Writers Conference. And I put in the tag literary agent because there's a lot of people out there looking for literary agents. So I threw that in as a tag. And it's the same thing if you're doing books on vampires or doing books on whatever the current trending Twitter topic is of the day, you can put in tags and you can continually update the tag so it'll be relevant. And now you should choose a thumbnail. Often, they'll choose one for you, but it might be one of you sticking your tongue out or scratching your head or looking silly. So you should look at the thumbnails and make sure that you have a good one that represents you and represents your brand and represents your book. And then, choose privacy as being public, allow for commenting and moderation and voting, and certainly allow for video responses because if it gets enough hits, the reply girl is going to come knocking at your door. And then finally, you can add annotations and links, and those are really good. YouTube gives you the ability, if you look at the black thing above the little Brian head on the right, you can put in links to other videos on YouTube, and those will be active links or passive links to external websites, which won't actually click through, but it'll show you where the link is. And then you can choose the start. And if you look in the lower right, you can choose exactly where the link is going to start and where it's going to end. So you could put pop-up bubbles, thought bubbles, captions, links, calls to action, anything all over the thing at different parts of the video. And you can manually enter in a start and stop, or you can just drag the slider to where you want it to start and then type in where you want it to stop. And finally, you can monetize, meaning that if you have enough content or if you have enough hits, Google will remind you, hey, make money on your videos. Set up your account for monetization in 4 easy steps. And it depends on your feelings on it, but you can make, if you have enough views, you can make a significant amount of money from it. And you can also do that from becoming a YouTube partner by contacting them if they haven't contacted you first. Now, YouTube isn't the only place on the web to be. You want to be able to put it into your WordPress. You want to be able to put it into your website, and certainly you want to get it on other blogs. So they give you an embed code to put it. So if you click, once it's made public, if you click on the word embed, to the left of the embed is the link to the video. So you can just give people the link. But if you click on that embed button to the right of it, this window comes up below it. It's not there naturally, but it does come up if you click on embed. There is the embed code, and then you can just drop that into your WordPress, into your WordPress blog. You can put it into your HostBaby website. You can put it on other blogs. You can put it anywhere, and then people will that video will show up on these other sites. The great thing about the embed code is if you use it, Google knows. Google knows all. In fact, if you look right there under the views that it has, it'll suddenly say, as seen on BookBaby blog. Google watches you, crawls the web, and knows without you telling them that you're using their embed code. They find it, and they will link your videos to it. That's really cool because, as I said earlier, you want them to come to your blog. You want them to come to your homepage. You want the traffic. You want to own the interaction. So they're putting links to you, and from this ecosystem, they're driving traffic to you just by having used their embed code, and that's awesome. So, preparing video for enhanced ebooks. The first thing I would say is don't. What that means is I'm going to tell you how to do it yourself, and you can do it yourself, but my take on it is that it's kind of like changing the oil in your car. You can do it yourself, but why? Meaning that a lot of you, I'm positive, and a lot of people in the industry are technologists. They are self-proclaimed geeks. They're people who are really, really, really interested in it. And if you've got to do this in scale, and if this is your job to do it, if this really, really entertains you, then you should do it yourself. You are the equivalent of a garage mechanic. But if you're not, there's no reason to. There's more to your life than technology and marketing. The Earth has been around for 4.55 billion years, and mankind's had subjective experience of consciousness for a couple hundred centuries. And unless you're Shirley MacLaine, you're not coming back. So you might as well spend the last few decades of your time on Earth doing things that really matter. And what matters to me is to be able to create. That's what I like to do in my almost every waking moment that I'm not doing BookBaby and CDBaby and HostBaby. But there's other things to do too. You can read books, for example, or travel, or play with your kids, or for God's sake, even Angry Birds. But the technology can be a hassle. So here's some problems of doing it yourself. Firstly, there's many different formats and flavors of EPUB. It's not EPUB 3 is a great standard that still, it's in the interests of the big platform creators to create walled gardens. So there's EPUB, there's Mobi, there's AZW. Kindle Fire has replaced Pocket Mobi with Kindle with KF8, and none of them are easy. There's also extra steps. For example, if you want to do your own, you're exporting from iMovie as an MOV file, but in order to do your own, you're going to have to open up QuickTime Pro and resave it as an M4V. So you're going to need to do that. There's also validation. A lot of people submit us EPUBs. They work really hard on them. We submit them to the dozens of retail outlets, and they fail. They fail EPUB check. They fail on manifest file check. And there are tools on the web to do it, but again, you may end up doing a lot of work and then have somebody else have to do it for you. And then finally, there's delivery issues that if you are doing it yourself from multiple retail stores, you have to set up and fill in all their forms, put in your banking information with each and every site, and then you have to handle the accounting for every single platform. And then a lot of the retailers, especially overseas, won't even accept individual authors. They're going to make you go through an aggregator anyway. So how to do it yourself? Well, firstly, to convert it, you can use. There's so many tools. There's InDesign 5.5. There's Calibre. There's Google's got one, Sigil. And then there's ways of validating it. So just because we get a lot of authors coming to us saying, okay, it looks great on my iPad. I just dragged and dropped it on the iPad. It's great. It's ready to go. And we deliver it, and then it fails Apple's EPUB check or unmanifest file check. So there's no guarantee that just because you can view it on an iPad that it's actually going to deliver to all the outlets. You can use online, there's free EPUB check tools online, so you can Google those. And there's one called Flight Crew EPUB Validator, which is especially good. So if you're doing InDesign, if you're using Creative Suite 5 or 5.5, you would simply just file place, and then you could put the video there, and you want to create an anchored object, so that way it won't move around. So if you look sort of like in the upper right of where you've placed the video, it's anchored, so it's not going to float around from the text. And then once you do it, you can tweak the video in these programs, in any of the three that I mentioned. There's some HTML5 code, and here's sort of a breakdown of what the code does. So you've got your video, which is the beginning of the start of the video element. You got that tag. And then you got the SRC tag, which says the location of the file. Now, the controls, if you put true there, it allows the reader to play and rewind and fast forward and control the volume and double-click to view it full screen. So that's a good thing to have. The width and height, you could do 640, 480 or 320, 240. I like having autoplay go to false because there's some caching issues. Sometimes if you put it in true, the last ebook that people have viewed will still come up in the next ebook they open. It's something that happens sometimes. I first read about it on Pigs, Gourds, and that Pigs, Gourds, and Wiki. What's the name of that blog that? Yeah, okay, I got it right. And then I confirmed it. So it is something well worth doing. Now, if you're working with, if somebody's doing the conversion for you, there's some things you should know. Firstly, for multimedia ebooks, it's not compatible with all devices. So if you're doing a conversion or delivery, you're going to need a separate one for dynamic ebooks. You're going to need a separate one for the old Nooks, for the old Kindles, and then you're going to need ones for the iPad, the Nook, and the Kindle Fire. It just won't play on all devices. The cost could be considerable. I mean, if you're combining it with fixed layout, it could be up to $2 a page. Multimedia by itself doesn't add much to the cost. Fixed layout is the lion's share of the cost. The advantages of doing it with fixed layout is that you can embed the enhanced elements within the text and the image. And also, you can do fancy things like JavaScript in there. And again, the maximum file size is 2 gigabytes. So the output, it would look something like this. You'd have your little play window video, which could be as big as you like or as small as you like, and then you could play it, and if you have the controls set to true, you could double-click on it, and then it could go full screen. So some specs of what you would need in order to do multimedia in an ebook, H.264 video compression is a good one to use, AAC compressed audio, M4V extension, which you could get by exporting to QuickTime Pro and then exporting from there with a nice healthy bit rate. Audio specs, AAC encoded would get good quality audio and an M4A extension as well. So to export using QuickTime, you could just do share export using QuickTime, and then you would export it that way. And to get to some of those settings, you would save instead of share export, you export to QuickTime. So you could save the exported file, give it a name, save it as its MOV file. You go into the movie settings, and the video compression, you would choose the H.264 there, and then the sound one, you could switch it from linear PCM to AAC. And now if you're working with a converter, you want to tell them where the video is going to go. So the easiest way is just to put the simple tags in red within the Word document. So you could just put it in red, insert video, dogandcat.m4v. And if it's in red, they're going to see it, and they're going to know that's where it goes. And then you can just upload or give them the video files separately. Don't put any file spaces. Don't put any spaces in the file name. And if you're using PDF, you could do that above, or just use the comments tool. And in the comments, the converter is going to be able to easily see what kind of placement you want for the video and audio. And also, don't forget print. Just like I showed with the Jonathan Lethem thing, Amazon brags that the lion's share of their sales are ebooks. And that's obviously true for Amazon, because when you go to Amazon.com, the first thing you're going to see large is either Amazon Prime or it's going to be their Kindle Fire. But in the real world on planet Earth, outside of Amazon, print books still matter. I love print books in addition. I can cuddle up to a Kindle, and I can also I love print books. You can write on them, you can highlight, you can draw margins in them, you can smell the ink on them, you can stick them in a bookshelf and look really good in front of them when people interview you or come over to your house. But if you're doing print, the print book's got to look good, because you are your brand. So a lot of POD houses out there, their work screams print on demand. They'll confine you to 3 different sizes and shapes in order to maximize gang runs, or they'll have these glossy covers or just lousy looking print. So you should make sure it's the right size for your genre, that they don't outsource it. We use G7 certified color and FSC certified paper, so it's eco-friendly while still looking amazing, and you should make sure that you get phone support and guarantees. But above all, more important than anything, is this cartoon from the New Yorker, which is enough storyboarding, let's shoot something. So there's no excuse nowadays to wait and spend tons of money and tons of time futzing and managing and micromanaging when you can really, for under $1,000, make content that goes viral, is compelling, differentiates you as a brand, and is engaging. So that's it. For any advice or any information, feel free to follow us, and thank you. Yeah, it's on Tools of Change's slideshow thing, but it's an earlier version. I added a lot more with the specs and the HTML5 tags. So if you just tweet me at my name or at BookBaby, I'll get you a more modern version. Sure.
Are you using Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere Pro?
I use iMovie. I've used when I'm making feature films, I use Final Cut. I have used Adobe Premiere in the past, but I've shot literally hundreds of videos and edited them within minutes on iMovie. Unless you've got multiple source clips or are layering over lots of audio and video or doing lots of filters, a lot of nonlinear stuff. So much of what you would need to do for anything, for a book trailer, for interviews, for readings, for contests, for opening up the creative process, for anything for your website or book can be done and edited in iMovie. It's amazing. Yes. Do I have a recommendation for streaming video?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So for streaming live video, there's a lot of sites out there. There was Justin.tv. There's Livestream. There's Ustream. There's a lot out there. I'm less of a fan of it now, simply because those are communities and ecosystems which involve a live event, but it's hard to get people together for a live event. If you are famous and do a book reading or do something very time sensitive or do something really interesting, or are going to be like Gigi Allen and promise to kill yourself on stage, or do something just completely outrageous that's very time sensitive, you could use any one of those communities and do it. But it's really, the audiences for that are getting smaller, and the time, and so much content is being created and uploaded onto YouTube that literally you could just throw something up on YouTube and then tweet it and Facebook it and get it on your website and get it everywhere and then continue to tweet and interact and engage and share. And that has a lot longer legs and echoes and afterlife than a one-shot live event, in my opinion. But, you know, there's certainly a lot out there if you really want to live stream. Cool. Well, thank you guys.